You and I are going wine shopping together. You can find a sensational bottle of wine for criminally low prices. Let's get started exploring and tasting new wines together. This week, we're going to visit another region that is not known for its affordable wines. These wines are rich and complex blends that showcase the Grenache grape. They're bursting with ripe berry and plum notes and often can age for 20 years or more. This region also holds the distinction for being France's very first wine appellation. Let's get a little more familiar with Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Châteauneuf-du-Pape lies in southeastern France's Rhône Valley, specifically in the southern Rhône, where it is arguably the area's premium growing region. The name Châteauneuf-du-Pape means the Pope's new castle, which refers to when, in 1309, Pope Clement V relocated the papacy, the seat of the Catholic Church, to the town of Avignon, which is in this area. The papacy remained here for another 70 years. And that's why on most bottles of Châteauneuf-du-Pape, you're going to see not only on the label, but also in this really heavy, thick bottle, the papal crest and insignia. Châteauneuf-du-Pape was plagued with fraud in the early 20th century, and so rules were drawn up to protect these wines. These rules became a prototype for future AOCs, or appellations, which are legally regulated and demarcated wine growing regions. In 1923, Châteauneuf-du-Pape was officially France's first AOC. Though Châteauneuf-du-Pape is the Rhone's largest growing region, it produces only two wines, a rouge, or a red, and a blanc, or a white. The red wines make up 94% of the wines produced in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, so for the sake of what we're tasting today, clearly we're gonna focus on the red wines. And the most planted red grape, about 75 to 80% of red grape plantings, is Grenache, followed by Syrah, Mourvedre, and 10 other wine grapes, all of which can be used in the blend in different levels depending on what that winemaker's vision is. Because of this range of blending possibilities, there are many different potential styles of the finished wine, with some producers making slightly lighter, more quaffable wines, and others making richer, more opulent wines that require some extended bottle age. Châteauneuf-du-Pape is an incredibly sunny region with a very warm, dry climate. A famous wind called Le Mistral blows through the region, sweeping away moisture and the potential for mildew and many other vineyard pests and diseases. But the wind itself is also very powerful, so you'll often see vines in this area trained very low to the ground to protect them from being ripped out of the ground. There are three main soil types throughout Châteauneuf-du-Pape, including the very famous rounded galets stones, which used to be the bottom of an ancient riverbed. These stones retain heat from the sun and continue ripening the grapes throughout the night. There are also more sandy soils, as well as limestone clay soils. These clay-based soils tend to produce wines that are more robust and have more tannic structure, while the sandier soils tend to produce wines that are a little more elegant and have more delicate aromatics. This bottle is from my local Trader Joe's, and I got it for $19.99, so it is on the upper end of the price spectrum as far as what we're drinking here in BYOB. But I did have a fellow sommelier friend tell me that he had picked up a bottle of this and that it was wonderfully typical of what this region is, and that for the price point, it was just incredible value. So of course, I had to taste it and share it with you. So this is Chateau Ferriros Reserve Jean 22. So it's named after Pope Jean the 22nd. It's one of those Avignon popes when the papacy was in the Rhône region. It will be predominantly Grenache, which is a grape that loves warm climates, so it's perfect in the Rhône. It gives us all of, like I mentioned before, those juicy berry notes, the juicy plums. Grenache can tend to spike a little higher on the alcohol side of things, so you don't want this grape to be super ripe when you pick it. And then you bring in these other supportive grapes, especially Syrah and Mourvedre, which are providing things like structure, acidity, tannin, and then also introducing these really fun earthy notes, kind of a meatiness, a gaminess, some herbaceousness as well, to balance out all of that fruit from the Grenache. But let's stop talking about what it tastes like and actually taste it. So looking at the wine in the glass, I can already tell you this is not going to be one of those opulent, big boys that's gonna need time to age. This is gonna be more of that quaffable, approachable style, just because it's this pale, I can see through the wine, I can see my hand through it, but this really brilliant, jewel-colored, ruby red color that is just delightful on the nose. It is the raspberries, blackberries, red plums, figs, all of these juicy, juicy fruits. I'm getting some clove on here as well, which is probably coming from the oak. There's an iron note, kind of a bloodiness on here in a nice way, not a gross way. But this lovely iron note, which you often get on a lot of Châteauneuf-du-Papes. Espresso bean note. God, I'm just finding more and more anise, licorice, balsamic, kind of these olivey notes. It's very Mediterranean, and it has something that's pretty important in the aroma and flavor profile of a Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and that's something called garrigue. So garrigue, throughout the south of France, in the Languedoc and Provence, you're gonna find these wild herbs that are growing out there, like rosemary, thyme, sage, and some lavender in there as well. And you can just smell it all on the wind as it's sweeping through these regions, so it's lovely. And you smell that on these wines as well. Lovely wine. Ooh, I love finding these things. So yeah, medium bodied. Again, not too heavy, not too rich and unctuous. Moderate tannin, medium plus acidity. Moderate alcohol, which again, this is a very warm, sunny region like we talked about. 14% alcohol, pretty typical. These wines are on the 14 and a half. Lovely finish. All of these notes just still unfolding, the floral notes, the herbaceous notes, and of course the fruit, that juicy plum and the juicy raspberry. It's almost like picking up a handful of raspberries and blackberries fresh from your farmer's market, super juicy and ripe, and just popping them all in your mouth and they explode with the juice. Kind of like a tobacco-y thing in here going on as well, a sweet tobacco. Yeah, it's just such a delight to see these major regions that typically not everybody can get to drink. You know, the top tier of these wines, understandably so, they're very expensive. To get to still try it, that the regions are not inaccessible. There are people making these wines and they are what they should be. They're a wonderful representation of the region. They're not misleading you in any way. And 20 bucks, not too bad for what this is. Not too bad at all. As far as food goes, when I think Châteauneuf-du-Pape and these wines, I think autumnal foods are just lovely. You know, those richer stews, roasted meats, grilled meats, especially if they're being roasted and grilled with those herbs we're talking about, rosemary, sage. Same with the vegetables as well, squashes, grilled, roasted squashes, yum. Rich mushroom sauces, plum cherry sauces as well, like a confit duck leg in a plum or cherry sauce. We got beef stews, like bœuf bourguignon, the beef stew with vegetables from France that, yummy. I think this is a wine that you should have a couple bottles of on standby in your cellar, in your little collection. Often, I think I'll probably grab a couple because it's just so pleasurable to drink this. I hope that you do have a chance at some point to get to try some of those upper tier Châteauneuf-du-Papes. They are expensive, understandably so. They're amazing wines. They're expensive. You can get into hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for some of these bottles, some of these special producers. And it's wonderful to taste where this wine can go. And especially if it's got, 10, 20 years of age on it, those meatier, gamier notes really start coming out and it gets really sexy. It's intoxicating, it's addictive. Drinking this makes me wonder why I'm not drinking more Châteauneuf-du-Pape, frankly. You should absolutely need to try it. It needs to be on your radar. It's a wonderful wine. Like I said, great to have on standby at all times. You never know when you might need it. I'll probably be drinking this tonight with dinner, some steaks or something. So yeah, let me know what you think of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. If you've had it before, what are some of your favorite bottles that you've had? And maybe what is a bottle that you're dreaming of? What's a year that you're dreaming of? What's a producer that you're dreaming of drinking from Châteauneuf-du-Pape? Let me know in the comments below. And until next week, when we open another bottle together, keep exploring and trying new wines. Santé.